Alrighty. Hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the THE Counsellor webinars. So today we're here. We're thrilled to have the University of Cambridge and Imperial College join us. We'll be spending the next hour or so exploring the best strategies for how to advise your students when approaching STEMB admission tests at these prestigious UK universities. So we have you here for a good hour. Feel free to ask questions throughout the webinar in the Q&A, just at the bottom of your screen there, and we will address them at the very end. So I'm not going to take up too much of your time. Let's dive in with our guest speaker, Peter and Dawn.
Thanks very much for that. Thanks very much. And good morning, everybody. Welcome to this morning or this afternoon, depends where you are in the world, today's webinar. My name is Peter Derrick. I am the Deputy Director for Marketing, Recruitment and Admissions here at Imperial College, London, and I'm joined by my wonderful colleague, Dawn. Dawn, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself quickly.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Dawn. I'm Deputy Head of Student Recruitment at the University of Cambridge. Nice to see you all.
And we're here this morning just talking a little bit about our science, engineering, and maths tests that we're going to be introducing, or have introduced, I should say, for application for 2025 entry and beyond. So we're going to spend a little bit of time this morning talking you through kind of why we're doing the tests, what are the two tests that are new for this cycle, and then the common test arrangements. How do people register? How do they book in for those tests? How do they prepare themselves so they can do the very best that they can? We'll be speaking for a little bit all the way through. Please don't hesitate to ask us a question. So please do pop it in the Q&A. As we've already said, do pop your questions in, because at the end of the presentation, we've left plenty of time for lots and lots of your questions. So please don't hesitate to ask a question. But without further ado, I will hand over to Dawn, and we'll start off with who we are and why we're testing.
Brilliant. Thanks, Peter. So I've got the first part of the presentation just to run through a bit of an introduction to UAT UK and also an introduction to the tests that we're running. So first of all, UAT UK stands for University Admissions Tests UK, if you didn't already know. It's a joint venture between Imperial College London and the University of Cambridge, and we've come together to set up a new sort of charitable venture to support the administration and delivery of new admissions tests here in the UK. It's worth saying that it is a charitable venture. We're not in this to make any profits whatsoever. Our main objective is to support the admissions tests in the UK to enable selective competitive universities to really support the selection and admission to the competitive degrees that we have at our institutions. Our initial focus as UAT UK is on maths, engineering and science tests, but that's not to say that we might not broaden that out to more subjects and more tests in the future. Have the next slide, please, Peter. Thank you. So as I said, we're providing two new admissions tests. These are new for 2025 entry. So that's for students who are applying in 2024 from October 24. And this is the first year of these tests run by UAT UK. It's for this year and beyond. We'll be running into the future as well, but this is our very first year running them. So that's why we're trying to give you guys as much information as possible so you can support your students through the process. The two tests that are currently run by UAT UK are the TMUA. So as ever, we have a lot of acronyms, and TMUA TMUA is the Test of Mathematics for University Admission. You may already be familiar with the TMUA test. It was previously delivered by Cambridge Assessment admissions testing. Cambridge Assessment is no longer running, so UAT UK have picked up the administration of the TMUA test. The second test that we're offering is the ESAT, so that's the Engineering and Science Admissions Test. This is a brand new test that has been developed by UAT UK for engineering and science courses, and that's being used just at Cambridge and Imperial for this year. Both of the tests will be administered by Pearson VUE. If you're not familiar with Pearson, it's a leading company with a global network of test centres. There's over 5,500 test centres across the world, so it really supports students in taking those tests at a test centre convenient to them, and it really supports the delivery of the tests by UAT UK. Thank you. So now to move on to why we're using admissions testing. You will likely know already and be aware that there are many elements to the admissions process, particularly at Cambridge and Imperial. We're already looking at students' applications. They may submit work. We may invite them for interview. So it's already a really sort of rigorous process in terms of how we look at applications. The admissions test is just sort of another part of that process. It's another part of the jigsaw. So we can really get to know more about the students who are applying to us. Obviously, examinations that students are taking provide really good preparation for university study. But where students are coming to us from all around the world studying different types of qualifications, having a common admissions test and a common set of results from students who might be studying a whole variety of qualifications, it really allows us to compare those students, help us to choose the students who are the most academically able and most likely to benefit from and succeed on our courses. We're able to benchmark the scores across the whole cohort to help us really sort of drill down into the students who have the most potential to succeed. Sorry, just skip back one for me, Peter. Thank you. I was just having a pause to think about what I was going to say next. So the courses are hugely competitive. We've got students who do so well at all the other aspects of the admissions process. So the tests help to sort of stretch and challenge the students. No one's ever going to get all the questions correct, but we can see who does well on the tests. The tests allow students to sort of another opportunity to demonstrate what they can do, demonstrate their potential. We're looking at their skills, such as mathematical problem solving ability, their subject knowledge and talents, and the understanding of the topics related to the course they're applying to. Thank you, Peter. So the UAT UK website is a sort of a one-stop shop for all the information that you need really relating to these two tests, the ESAT and the TOMUA. You can see the web address there. It's a really useful resource for you and for your students. So please do take a look, digest it, and direct your students there as well. All information about the registration process, booking deadlines, preparation information, all the information you need is there. But that's not to say that the only information is there. You also need to supplement this with institutional websites for the universities that your students are applying to. That's where you'll find the requirements for each course of study and the admissions tests that are related, that are required for those applicants to those courses. So we've got a brief introduction now to the two tests. So the first one is the test of mathematics for university admission, TOMUA. As I said, this is an existing test that has now been taken over by UAT UK. It tests mathematical thinking and reasoning skills. The test is 2.5 hours in total and divided into two parts. There's no optional sections to the TOMUA test. Students will study the same two parts of that test. The two modules are taken back to back. So it takes 2.5 hours in total, as 75 minutes each. And it's a multiple choice format for the test, and it's all computer-based assessments. Is there a next slide for that one? Thank you. For the TOMUA, there is 2 sittings, 2 test windows. There's no advantage to taking the test earlier or later unless your students are applying to Cambridge, in which case, because of the earlier application deadline, they must take their test in the earlier testing window. The two testing windows are completely reflective of the UCAS equal consideration deadlines. So students applying to courses using the October UCAS deadline need to take their tests in the October sitting. Students applying for courses across universities, for example, if they're applying to Cambridge and Imperial, they would need to sit in the October deadline, and then their test result from that October sitting will go towards all the courses on their UCAS application as well. So UAT UK is a joint venture between the University of Cambridge and Imperial, but we do also have some other universities joining us in using the Temua test. So at the moment, we've got LSE, Warwick and Durham joining us using the Temua for some of their courses in maths, economics and computer science. We hope to be able to roll this out to other institutions in the future, and the real benefit to students, so a lot of these universities share a huge number of applicants. So the benefit for the student is that they only need to take one test that can be used in the admissions process by multiple institutions. So whereas in the past, there might have been a different test for each institution they were applying for, this should make the process much easier for the students where they can use the same test result for multiple applications to different universities. So moving on to the engineering and sciences admissions test, the ESAT. As I mentioned before, this one is a brand new test that's being delivered this year. Can we move on to the next slide, please, Peter? Thank you. So the ESAT is testing mathematical and science thinking alongside reasoning skills. And the setup to this one is not all the same for all courses. So every student taking the ESAT will take the first module, which is compulsory, which is Maths 1. And then in most cases, students will take 2 additional assessments from a choice of biology, chemistry, physics, and maths. It's really important that students check the course pages for the subjects that they want to apply to at university, and there'll be clear details there as to which modules they need to take for the courses that they're applying to. And again, the ESAT is a computer-based assessment made up of multiple choice assessments. Each part of the test lasts for 40 minutes, and those parts are taken back to back on the day. So most candidates are taking 3 assessments. So back to back, that would last 2 hours in total in terms of the timing of their assessment. Again, there's 2 test windows, and just to reiterate the point that students applying to courses at Cambridge, they must sit the ESAT in the October testing window to be considered for those courses at Cambridge. And again, the test dates, the testing windows are completely reflective of the UCAS consideration deadlines as well. At the moment, the ESAT is only being used by Imperial and the University of Cambridge, and the courses that it's relevant to are engineering, physics, natural sciences, and veterinary medicine. And there will be different modules, different parts of the assessment that they need to take for each of those courses. And again, in the future, we might be rolling that out to other institutions who come on board with UAT UK. I think that's it from my bit. So thank you. And I'm going to pass you over to Peter, who's going to run through some more of the details around the test administration. And before I pass on, just a reminder, if you've got any questions about any of this, please put them in the Q&A and we'll pick them up at the end of the presentation.
That's great. Thanks very much, Dawn. So just now looking a little bit about some of the arrangements that are common across both Temua and ESAT. So as Dawn already mentioned, we're going to be hosting these tests via the network of Pearson VUE test centres, rather than these tests being sat in schools or colleges. So the expectation is the student would travel to one of these Pearson VUE test centres. Now, there is a big network of them. There's about 5,500 test centres around the world. And when we went live with registration in the summer, there is a full list of test centre availability on the website, and that's maintained and that's live as it is at the moment. We do work with Pearson to plan out their capacity to where these test centres should be. Now, of course, there are some countries in the world that are absolutely ginormous, and so it might be that some students still will have to travel quite a significant distance to get to their local test centre. But we are hopeful that actually that nobody will be crossing any kind of international boundaries, and colleagues can be reassured that there will be capacity. There should be enough seats for everybody, because we've worked through with Pearson where things are where we expect candidates to be. We are, of course, as well aware that there are sometimes in this first year, there may be some teething problems as well with kind of test centre availability. So if you have candidates that are struggling to find a test centre, the best thing to do is contact Pearson VUE Customer Support Centre, and they should be able to help you find somewhere. If you're really, really struggling to find a test centre, then you can lodge an inquiry with UAT UK, and we can look into it for you. UAT UK being the joint venture between Cambridge and Imperial. Importantly, the onus is on the student to register themselves for the test. So students have to self-register for their test. The actual registration process itself is really quick and quite easy. It is a two-step process, however, though. So candidates need to go onto the Pearson VUE website, the UAT part of that, and create themselves a Pearson VUE account. And that must be in their legal name. Now, it must be in their legal name because it needs to match up with their application when they're applying to either Imperial or Cambridge or wherever they're applying to. But when they come on the testing day to log into the centre, they're expected to provide some form of government issued ID just to verify who they are. And obviously that's why the names need to match up on their booking with the ID that they're also going to be bringing on the day. Once they've created their Pearson VUE account, they can then log into their account, find a location and pay for their tests. Any applications for access arrangements must be made before somebody's booking a test, and I'll come back to that a little bit later on. But on the ESAT Tamura website that Dawn's already mentioned, the full details of exactly how to register and a step-by-step guide is on that website. There's an awful lot of information on this slide. This is a list of kind of dates and a timeline for the October sitting. Please don't worry about copying this all down or screenshotting it. It's an exact copy of what is already on the website. So there are timelines on the ESAT Tamura website, but you'll see obviously we're coming quite close now to where online test registration closes. So for the October sitting of the test, online registration will close on the 16th of September. So very, very close now, just another 5 days for online bookings to be made for the October sitting. And of course, if one of your candidates is applying to Cambridge in any of their combinations of their choices on their UCAS application, they must, of course, sit the test in October. After the online booking has closed, candidates can make a booking by phone and ring Pearson VUE customer services on the telephone up until the 1st of October, after which point, unfortunately, there will be no further test bookings for the October sitting. And then we've got the ESAT and Tamura testing windows. We will release candidates' results, more on this a bit later on, but approximately 6 weeks after they have sat the test. Obviously not relevant for candidates applying to Cambridge, but if they are only applying to Imperial or one of the other universities that's using ESAT or Tamura, they can obviously sit in January should they wish. Now, candidates can go on and create their Pearson VUE account, but we haven't yet started the registration countdown for the January window. So from the 23rd of September, we'll start accepting applications for access arrangements and bursaries, which must be made before somebody books their test. Test registration will open on the 24th of October and will run all the way through until the 9th of December, which is when online registration closes for the January test sitting. And like October, there's a further 2 weeks where people can phone up and book in ahead of us closing the test booking on the 23rd of December, ready for the testing window on the 8th, 9th and 10th of January. Again, results will be made available to candidates approximately 6 weeks after they've sat the test. I said I'd come back to access arrangements. So access arrangements, and by which we mean if an applicant has some kind of learning difficulty or a disability or a sensory impairment or some kind of medical condition that will impact on their ability to sit the tests, then they are allowed additional time. So we can make access arrangements available to them. So this might be extra time, it might be a separate room, it might be some kind of a reader recorder for students with visual impairments. So if they have access arrangements in their public exams, so their state exams, whatever they do in school, then and with supported by a psychologist or a special education teacher, then we can put those arrangements in place for their tests as well. Those arrangements must be requested though before the test is booked, and those are dealt with by UAT UK. Full details of that process and how to do that are all on the ESAP Tamura website, but just the take-home message for that is if, you know, for example, you might have a dyslexic student and they need additional time, they must register for that before booking their test. There is a list of something called kind of permitted comfort aids, which sounds a bit odd. It doesn't sound, you know, particularly, but by that we mean these are things that candidates can bring into the testing room with them. So say you have a diabetic candidate and they need to have their insulin pen with them or something like that, then they can, you know, that's already on the list of pre-approved items that they can bring in to the testing centre without any need for approval. If somebody has got a kind of a medical device that they need with them at all times that's not on that list, then again, they need to apply for permission to bring that into the room. Because obviously we want to keep these tests really secure so the results are valid. There is a cost to the tests, unfortunately. So, but we, as Dawn mentioned earlier, this joint venture between Cambridge and Admissions, we've been Cambridge and Imperial, we've been really trying to keep the costs to candidates as low as possible. So nobody's making any kind of profit out of it. This is literally a contribution towards the cost of running the tests. In the UK and the Republic of Ireland, it's £75, whereas tests taken outside of the UK and the Republic of Ireland, it's £130. And that difference in price really does only just represent the difference in cost in terms of running test centres in different parts of the world. For those familiar taking exams in places like the British Council, sometimes there are additional centre fees. There are no additional centre fees. So when a candidate has paid their test fee, that is it. That's all they have to do. There's no additional fees on that. Tests are payable by major credit cards or debit cards at the time of booking. If you're in a country that struggles with debit or credit cards, people can also pay UAT directly as well, but that's only offered to candidates where, you know, they can't use a credit card in their particular country. We'll keep the test fee will be reviewed annually by UAT UK, and we'll often look to try and reduce that fee wherever possible. A little bit of note now on about how to prepare for these tests and a little bit about the results. So preparing for the tests, obviously all of the material that are in the tests are material that we would have expected a candidate to already have covered. So they're drawn from the specifications of the UK qualifications about GCSEs and AS level mathematics and science qualifications. So in ESAT, all of the science and maths is drawn from GCSE, and in CHMUA, all of the material is drawn from GCSE and AS level maths. So there really is, it should be material that they've already covered. We're not trying to catch anybody out. We're really, really not. And to that end, on the website, we have got the full specification documents for both of the tests. So exactly what questions, what the specs, what the specifications are, what the bits of science knowledge are, what the bits of mathematical knowledge are, laid out in the test specification. And I'd advise candidates familiarise themselves with those specifications so they can ensure that they have covered all of the material, they've covered all of the content in their revision for these tests. We don't recommend that you take any of these expensive preparatory courses because obviously these are new tests, and these preparatory courses I won't have had experience of them before because these are new tests. But, we have put a lot of material up on the website in terms of helping students to prepare for the tests. There's a practice test with explained answers, so the candidates can have a go at the test, and then if they get it wrong, an explained answer will come up. Students could also have a go at another practice test. This time there won't be explained answers, but there is a timer with it, so people can have a go at actually having a kind of a practice under timed conditions. We've also made available on the website 2 documents called Notes on Mathematics and Notes on Project Proof and Logic. And these 2 documents are also revision guides, particularly aimed at supporting students taking CHMUA. We have also got a repository of all of the past papers for CHMUA on the website as well. And although ESAT is a brand new test, it is based on 2 historic tests that the University of Cambridge used to administer. And so those old test papers are also on the website. So there's a huge amount of free material for people to get stuck into and prepare themselves for the tests. I think the most important thing is candidates familiarise themselves with the style and the format of the questions. These are multiple choice questions, and some candidates may not have done a multiple choice exam in the past. So it's really important that they kind of familiarise themselves with how answering multiple choice questions is different. As I said, there's lots of practice material available on the website, so please do use that and encourage candidates to engage with it as well. In terms of the results, results will automatically be released to applicants directly from their Pearson VUE booking system. So where they booked their test, they will have the ability to see their result, and that will happen automatically 6 weeks after the test is taken. The results are automatically shared with the universities that use the tests as well. So Cambridge and Imperial and Warwick and Durham and LSE. If the candidate has applied to them at any point, then their test result will be shared with them. And Pearson work with UCAS and with UAT UK to match up those results in the background and send them on to universities. So there's no need to share results with universities directly. They're automatically sent to them. Really important point of note here, only the result from the first sitting will be accepted. So candidates should not sit the test more than once. So if a candidate is applying to Imperial and Cambridge, then they must sit the test in October, and that is their sitting for that test. They cannot sit it again. If a candidate is applying to Imperial, then they could sit in October or January. They cannot sit in both. Results are only valid for 1 admissions cycle. So if an applicant is applying this year and sits the test and is unfortunate and doesn't get a place and wants to apply again next year, they would have to sit the test again next year in that admissions cycle. Another really important point on this slide I really want to make sure everyone kind of understands is that there is no pass or fail for the TMUA or the ESAT. Candidates will get a kind of a number, and it's not a case of pass or fail. That number that they get, that result that they get, is essentially based on the number of correct answers that they have managed to do in the time allotted to them. There's absolutely no penalty for incorrect answers. So really, 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 we encourage all candidates to just have a go, attempt all the questions they can to the best of their ability, do the best they can on the day, and really give it a go. And also not to be disheartened when they get their result. The tests are designed to be difficult. And I know that might be sort of a self-evident thing, but I think often we need to remind applicants and candidates that these tests are hard and we don't expect people to get full marks. You know, the university, I'm sure Dawn would agree with me, you know, the University of Cambridge and Imperial, we don't expect people to get full marks on these tests. We expect them to do well, but, you know, they're deliberately difficult. So just do the very, very best they can and don't get disheartened when they get their results. We did say that we'd leave plenty of time for questions and answers at the end, and I'm sure Dawn's been keeping a careful eye on the questions and the answers, and now is that time where we'll switch over to doing those. But if anything else comes up or suddenly occurs to you as we're going through these, please don't hesitate to put them in the Q&A.
Thanks, Peter. So thanks everyone for all your questions that have come in so far. The first one that I wanted to pick up is we've had a couple of questions about STEP. So just to be clear that the TMUA, it's called the Test of Mathematics for University Admission. At the University of Cambridge, the TMUA is being used for computer science and economics. For mathematics at Cambridge, STEP is still very much in place. There are no changes to that system. Someone's asked a question about step 2 and 3. Yes, absolutely. Step 2 and 3 are what students need to take if they're applying to maths at Cambridge. So that's that one covered.
On that one, Dawn, just to say, for Imperial, we do occasionally ask some of our mathematics candidates to take a step. Full guidance on when you would be expected to take STEP if you're applying to maths at Imperial is on our website, on Imperial's mathematics pages. So please do check those out. But it's not, unlike Cambridge, it's not for everyone. We've got some specific instances when we do that.
Thank you. I think that really clearly reiterates the message that the course pages for the institutional on the institutional websites for the degree courses that your students are applying to really are the key source of a lot of the information in terms of the admissions testing requirements for each candidate and each course. Okay, so the next question we've got is, if the Oxbridge deadline is October 15th, will the October 17th testing date still work for them? And the short answer is absolutely yes. But I wonder, Peter, if you wanted to pick up anything on how and when the results are shared with institutions.
Yeah, absolutely. So candidates don't need to do the two in parallel. It's not a sequential thing. So candidates can do their UCAS application and still submit it by the 15th of October, as they should do if they are including Cambridge or Oxford or medicine or dentistry or veterinary science as one of their choices in those 5 choices. But they also, in parallel, need to be registering for the test sitting in October for the relevant test that they're sitting. So if they're, doing ESAT and they're applying to both Imperial and Cambridge, then they must have registered for that October sitting. And so the two run in parallel. Submit the results. Obviously, the application goes off to Cambridge, goes off to Imperial, goes off to wherever it's going. And then on the 17th, or whenever they picked, whichever day they've picked to sit their test, they will sit that test. And that's okay because the application has only just arrived at at Cambridge and at Imperial. And then what happens in the background is we marry up the applications. We work with UCAS and with Pearson to marry up the applications and the test results and share those test results with Cambridge and Imperial and other participating universities. And that happens automatically. And then, so there's no delays then in the application for that at all, in the processing of the application. Candidates get notified of their results about 6 weeks after the sitting. The same is true for January, obviously not relevant for Cambridge, but the same is true for January. So it all marries up in the background and results are shared.
Thank you. Our next question is, what happens if a student fails? Can they retake the test?
So there is, you might have heard me say at the end of the last slide, we don't view it as a pass or fail situation. So no, ultimately they can't resit the test because candidates, only the first sitting will ever be used. So they can only sit only that result will count in any 1 year. So there is no sitting the exam again. Of course, if they apply the following year, they can sit the admissions test again. But really, it is not a pass or fail situation. So, for example, with TMUA, candidates will receive a score out of 9. Now, and as you can imagine, there'll be a whole spread of results, up to, some geniuses will get 9. It's not very common, I can assure you that, but some might get 9 and some will get lower marks as well. Now, all the universities that use the tests alongside all the other information on the application, including the personal statement and the reference and the predicted grades and their achieved qualifications. And it's another bit of information we use about whether people are going to progress on to interview or on to offer. And we'll look at the context at which that result is being received as well. So we don't perceive it as a pass or fail in that instance. Obviously, if a candidate has got a low score, they are unlikely to progress in the application assessment. So they may well be unsuccessful that year. And obviously higher scores you're more likely to go through, but we don't view it as a kind of a pass or fail, if that makes sense.
Thank you. So the next question is, do all natural sciences students applying to physics at Cambridge need to take the ESAT? And the answer is yes. So whichever sort of stream of natural sciences your student is interested in, all students need to take the ESAT. So Maths 1 is that first module that's compulsory to everyone to sit, and then students will take one of the 4 options, so either biology, chemistry, physics, or Maths 2. So depending on the sort of physical side or biological side of natural sciences, students can choose their modules as appropriate for their ESAT test for that. I don't know if you wanted to add anything else, Peter.
Yeah, I suppose just to say, and it's quite a common combination, and rest assured, we don't know if somebody has applied to Cambridge and Imperial. We don't see that information when their application comes through. But obviously, if they are applying to Cambridge and Imperial, say it's a natural sciences at Cambridge, this is a very common combination, natural sciences at Cambridge or physics and physics at Imperial maybe, for example. Natural sciences have a relatively free choice at Cambridge in terms of ESAT modules. So it's Maths 1 plus 2 more. Whereas at Imperial, we more typically specify which modules you have to take. So if there's a free choice at Cambridge, but specified modules at Imperial, you have to take the specified modules because they will count for both Imperial and Cambridge. So in the example I was just giving you then, if it was natural sciences at Cambridge and physics at Imperial, they would have to sit Maths 1, Maths 2, and physics, because that's the specification required for Imperial, and it will also count for natural sciences at Cambridge.
Perfect. We actually had exactly that question with an
Oh,
example of students taking natural sciences at Cambridge, applying for natural sciences at Cambridge and physics at Imperial. So 2 for 1 there. Thank you. Um, we've got a couple of questions relating to preparation for the tests. We mentioned in the presentation that the test material is based on GCSE and AS type material. If international students are taking other qualifications such as IB and it doesn't necessarily align with, say, a GCSE curriculum, do they need additional preparation? Is there any guidance for those students?
yeah, so they may, and it's really difficult, obviously, when sort of talking about different curriculum. And if I may, I'm just going to share my screen one more time just to show colleagues exactly where it is on the ESAT Tamura website. So this is obviously the ESAT Tamura website. If you click on prepare, this is a whole section dedicated to the preparation of the tests. And if you scroll down, there's this little first tile here where you'll see the ESAT test specification and the Tamura test specification. If you click on that, it will take you to a PDF. This is for ESAT, and then this is what the specification looks like. And so you'll see some sort of general things all the way through. But for example, we expect candidates to use standard units of maths, length, time, money, and other measurements, and use compound units such as speeds, rates of pay, units pricing, density, pressure, including decimal quantities where appropriate. So that's an example of what we expect somebody to know. And obviously, this is a very detailed document and it goes through. But in a way, I would expect candidates to look at this and go, oh, well, I know all about the units of mass, length, and time, and put a little tick next to that bit, and then just go through these specifications to make sure they have covered everything that's in the specification. The same is there for Tamura as well. Once they've used that's where the specifications are. If there are any topics that they haven't covered, then potentially they need to approach their teachers and advisors for more assistance. There's obviously resources online. I'm sure I'm sure the free resources online to help people prepare for things they may not have covered. This is also the link to our practice tests here. And then I also mentioned this other preparation material as well. So we've got notes on mathematics, which will help explain things for Tamura paper 1 and ESAT maths paper 2. And notes on logic and proof, which is very helpful for Tamura paper 2. And if I just click on that for a second, this is obviously for Tamura paper 2, but this kind of guide here is not supposed to be a textbook, but certainly kind of walks candidates through how to do various bits. So if there is a topic that they haven't done, please do, and it's mathematics related, please do check these two first. That might be helpful. And then, as I said, the archive questions here of Tamura and ESAT. So there's lots of things available to help people prepare. And hopefully also guide people through where they haven't necessarily done if a bit of the specification is missing. That's probably a fuller answer than you needed, Dawn, but
Oh, it's brilliant. I'm sure everyone will have found that super helpful and they've got all the information out of that one. Thank you. Do universities select candidates for interviews based on the test results and how?
Yeah, so and I'm sure, Dawn, it's very similar at Cambridge, but at Imperial as well, we're and reasons why we're collaborating actually is that we want candidates to just do one test and have a better student experience. But yes, the test result alongside their personal statement and their reference and their predicted grades and their achieved qualifications will all be taken together to understand whether they're going to progress to the next stage, which obviously at Cambridge is always the interview, isn't it, Dawn? Everyone gets an interview, is the next stage. And at Imperial, it is either an interview or it's an offer. So we don't interview for all of our courses at Imperial.
Thank you. Yeah, at Cambridge, we're interviewing the vast majority of candidates where the test just becomes, as Peter said, another part of the part of the puzzle, another part of the process. So it is that holistic process at both institutions to assess candidates with as much information as we can manage to muster about each individual. Okay, sorry, I've lost my trail here. We've had another similar one there. What will the impact be on the evaluation of applications? But I think we've probably just covered that with that one.
Yeah, yeah.
We've got we've still got a few more questions coming in about STEP, so I'll pop some links in the chat so to direct you to more information about STEP. But just to reiterate the point that you don't need the TOMUA exam for maths at Cambridge. Students do still need to be taking the STEP examinations, and the timeline for those is quite different to the UAT UK testing that we're talking about at the moment. It more aligns with students taking their A levels, so they sit the STEP exams around June time. Do you have anything else that you want to pick up on with STEP, Peter, before we move
Just
on?
to say with STEP, so for mathematics at Imperial, we do expect you to take TOMUA. So that's the expectation. Candidates who don't sit TOMUA or are unable to sit TOMUA, we would normally expect them to sit STEP. But full details about that are on our maths course pages on the Imperial website. And if I kind of try and Google in the background, I can try and find it for you and then put it in the chat so everyone's got that. So then it's clear for everyone.
Thank you. Will the result be broken down by section for the ESAT?
Yes, so there will be an overall score and then there'll be section results for the ESAT.
That was a nice short and sweet one.
That's an easy one.
Do students who have taken GCSE and or A-level exams need to take UAT as well?
So we still expect, obviously, our entry requirements to be met. So if at Imperial we're asking for 3 A levels and we ask you to get an A star and 2 A's, or including maths, we still expect people to do their A levels or equivalent qualification, IB diploma, or whatever your state, whatever your public exams are in that country, because those exams are really good preparation for our courses. It covers a load of knowledge that you need to know for our courses and be good preparation for them. Because competition is so strong for our programs of study at both Cambridge and Imperial, we also use admissions tests. It gives us an extra understanding of somebody's ability to be prepared to take on our programs. So they must sit the admissions test alongside whatever qualifications they are doing, because obviously those qualifications go their acceptability goes way beyond just getting into university. They're, the qualifications for life, aren't they? Having A levels, I still apply for jobs and still get asked about my A levels or whatever your school leaving certificate might be. So that's the tests really are just about applying to university. So yes, they do.
Brilliant, thank you. We've got about 10 minutes left of the session today and the questions are slowing up. So just if you do have any more questions, please do put them in the Q&A and we'll try and get through them as best we can. The next question here is, how do you view resit candidates? So if someone applies, say, in 2023 and was unsuccessful, decided to try again in 2024, will their first score from TOMUA 23 be taken into consideration at all?
No, so the TOMUA score from the admissions cycle that they are applying in is the TOMUA score that will be used in the assessment of their application. So absolutely. So they almost kind of, when it comes to the admissions test, get a fresh go at it in that admissions cycle. So we wouldn't prejudice somebody for that at all. So yeah, no, we're quite open to them taking TOMUA again.
Thank you. And is there an ideal or minimum score in the TMUA and the ESAT that could be considered as desirable for Cambridge or Imperial?
So we don't publish that ahead of time, and I know that's not what you want to hear, but every year, because we have a different cohort of students taking it, sometimes they do better and sometimes they do worse. So we scale the result and look at what we're looking for. So it's not very useful for us to give you a number in any given year because it's very difficult to compare between the years. ESAT's brand new, so we don't have a history of that number, and also TMUA has been slightly reformatted. So in previous years, those comparisons aren't relevant. As I said, we don't have a pass fail. We just need to encourage candidates to do the best they absolutely can and give it a go and make an application.
Thank you. If students' predicted grades do not meet the requirements by one missed grade, can they still apply?
I mean, I think they can. They can. They will obviously be towards potentially towards the weaker end of the candidates that we would look at. If they're not predicted to meet our minimum entry requirements. I think that's really important to understand. We often have a minimum entry requirement advertised, and many of our candidates are offering grades in excess of that minimum. So if somebody is going to struggle to meet the minimum, without any kind of extenuating circumstances or that, taken into account, they would be towards the weaker end of our application pool, but they can always make an application, absolutely. And many candidates do that might have mitigating circumstances or something about their application that means that we would still take we would take a careful look at all applications, but take a careful look at that applicant.
Brilliant, thank you. Can we please clarify the difference between STEP and TMUA, and when does one need to take which exam? I think we might have caused a little bit of confusion along the way on this one.
STEP is an exam run by OCR. STEP is taken in the summer. STEP is taken in schools and colleges, very much like an A-level. So it's like an A-level exam, except really hard. And it's taken in the summer. TMUA is an admissions test taken either in October or January, run by UAT UK. For mathematics at Cambridge, you must do STEP. For mathematics at Imperial, you should do TMUA. If you are unable to do TMUA, you may be asked to take STEP, but full guidance for that
I think Peter has... Oh, you're back. You just froze for a moment there, Peter.
Sorry, I don't know what the last thing you heard was.
You were just about to say that full guidance is on the websites.
Yes, do check our websites for maths.
Brilliant, thank you. The next question we've got here is, do students applying to medicine, what do they need to take? So at Cambridge, students applying to medicine need to take the UCAT. There's no changes at Cambridge to that one.
And at Imperial, they also need to take UCAT, so the UK Clinical Aptitude Test. If they're applying to our graduate entry medicine course, we will also accept GAMSAT.
Perfect, thank you. Do we have a list of the test centres across the world, or by region, by country? Can you access that without creating an account with Pearson?
So unfortunately, the easiest way to do that is to create an account with Pearson and look at the test centres that are available. Test centres tend to get established and also kind of open and close, so it's very difficult to provide a static list. So the best thing to do is to create an account and have a look.
And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Peter, that it's a better search if you search by country rather than state, or the other way around?
Try and be as specific with your address as possible for your country. Because, for example, if you just search USA, for example, it says there's 2 test centers in Boston. Well, I know there's at least 5 test centers else, there's loads of test centers. So try and be as specific as possible with your address when you're searching.
Perfect, thank you. Will percentiles be posted after the results are released?
Yes. So when candidates get their notification slip, like Tamura has done in the past, percentiles have been included, that those will be included. And UAT UK as well will do a kind of an end of testing cycle statistical release, so people will be able to see those percentiles.
Brilliant. As there is more than one test sitting for each test, will questions be randomized from a bank or similar system to avoid cheating?
Yes, so we have a huge bank of questions, and those questions are thoroughly quality assured and then thoroughly assessed for difficulty. So all questions are standardized, so they're all of the same difficulty, but then that allows us to randomize questions to avoid cheating. And I won't go into all of the security arrangements we undertake because we want to keep those confidential for obvious reasons. But we put Pearson. One of the reasons we work with Pearson is that they've obviously got a whole security team to keep tests secure.
Thank you, Peter. We've done a full circle back to STEP very quickly. How do international students take STEP?
So the school or college that the student is at would need to, I believe, approach OCR directly to register as a centre to offer STEP, and deal directly with OCR. So OCR administer that. But if you're already offering kind of like international A levels and things like it, shouldn't be too. I don't know the process, so I'm not going to make it up, but do have a look at the guidance from OCR.
Absolutely, thank you. You stated previously that students need to self-register for the tests. Where do they create their accounts?
Yeah, so on esattamura.ac.uk, if you follow the link on register, it will take you to the Pearson VUE website where you can register for an account. So in the websites we've already shared in the chat, if you follow oh actually no, let me share. I'll share the link for ESAT Tamura in the website. And if you click on register, that will take you straight to the right place to do the registration.
Brilliant. And as if perfect timing, as we have 3 minutes to the hour, we've just got one question left that we haven't dealt with, which is, will these slides be shared, will the information be shared in a different way? So we've mentioned lots of times about information and websites being a really useful resource of information. That absolutely still applies. We've also been running other webinars as well. So I know for certain on the University of Cambridge website, you will be able to find recordings of similar webinars, and I'm sure the guys who you've registered for this one with will be sharing the recording afterwards as well. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you guys. That was a lot of information in this past hour. And thank you guys for your important questions. We will be in touch very, very soon from both Dawn and Peter. So any last words, guys? Any advice?
Oh, just do register for the tests and do the best they can. Yeah, absolutely.
And
Oh,
I guess with my Cambridge hat on and knowing that the Cambridge tests are in that October sitting only, it's really important to reiterate the registration deadline, which is coming up very swiftly, Monday, the 16th of September. Please do advise your students to get themselves registered by that deadline to make sure they have the best shot that they can at the test.
amazing. Well, thank you everyone for attending. We will be in touch soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Thanks.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.